Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We had our prologue introduction video regarding the apparent Gladio murder of the gentleman behind my shoulder here. This is William Egan Colby, former director of CIA. Okay, let's pass the baton to our UPI world-class journalist, Jennifer Small. Take it away, Jennifer.
All right. Well, when we last left off on this dark and stormy night, the body of the former CIA director has gone missing, but his canoe has found miraculously beached on a sandbar filled with sand, which is a little hard to do if you don't have a human putting that sand in. So my question that we were working on was, how do you compare the official account with the evidence on the ground? And the official account was that Colby had a heart attack, fell over, and drowned in the water. And you were pointing out all the inconsistencies about how his house was left in a mess and chaos, and that's not who he was. He was very meticulous. He was a military man. Everything was in its place, all nice and neat. And he wouldn't just walk out at night and go for a canoe ride. So we're waiting to find the body. Mr. Detective Juxtaposition, can you tell me what is the latest update?
Because when it happened, it appears that Bill Colby exited his cottage, his cabin, on or around 8:30 p.m. to 9 p.m., somewhere in there. There's no witness. So I'm going to say 8:30, he was tased by men who entered his cottage at pitch darkness. Twilight is 7:57. I think they waited another 30 minutes. I think they had intelligence information that he was cooking dinner and that he was sitting at his dining room table. I want to draw a distinction here. It's a small cabin. It probably was around 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom home, 1 or 2 bath. I think it's probably just 1 bath. It's pretty Spartan. But he expanded the square footage when he built out a roof and installed windows on his deck. And the deck's the highlight of this particular cottage. He's the last home on a dead-end cul-de-sac at the end of a peninsula or a spit there on what is called Neal Sound. And he faces southern exposure. So it's really a wonderful location. You could always tear down the cottage and build a dream house if you wanted. It has southern exposure. And in California, that's important because the most expensive real estate in California is like Santa Barbara or Malibu or La Jolla. All of those locations have southern exposure, meaning that your view from the front of your home faces south toward the equator. And that means the sun is generally not in your eyes. You don't have to have window coverings that you have to lower. Whereas if your home faced east or west, you'd have blinding sun in your eyes, whether it's sundown or sunset. But southern exposure, you don't need window coverings. Although you could. I mean, usually people do have window coverings, but they're not required because of sun glare. So William Colby enjoyed a panoramic view from his deck. Now he took half of it and he enclosed it with a roof, but he opened the windows. He installed windows so that he would have the same view as if he was outside, where you see water on 3 sides of your property. You look at Cobb Island at the Portside Marina. You look at Neal Sound. You can see sort of down toward Chesapeake Bakeway. Chesapeake Bay is to the southeast. It's probably 50 miles away from his cabin to get to Chesapeake Bay proper. But he's in a very lovely area, confluence of 2 rivers. He's got the Potomac River coming down from Washington, D.C., and Georgetown Way, where he lives in a number 13 house in Georgetown. And this cabin is a number 13 house. It's actually 13450. 13450 adds up to 13. Unity amongst Masons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a coincidence that his home in Georgetown also adds up to 13 address, the one that's actually not far from Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn. I'm trying to think what the address is there. It's 3028 Dent Place. And by the way, they typed that address in on his medical examination autopsy as his home address was in Georgetown, Northwest Washington, which is 3028 Dent Place. You can Google that. It's a fairly modest home there, but it looks a lot like where John Kennedy lived when he was a senator from Massachusetts. And it's like Mary P. Shaw Meyer's home, and many CIA people live in that particular neighborhood, along with the editor and publisher of the Washington Post. They all live within blocks of William Colby's address at 3028 Dent Place. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think it's important to note that the person who lived in Catherine Graham's house before her was, what do you call him, Wild Bill Sullivan? Wild Donovan. Yeah, he was the founder of the OSS, which preceded the CIA.
Yeah, well, he was the founder of the CIA, and he was the head of the OSS at the time of World War II. He was the boss, but I don't believe he founded it. It was military intelligence already existed. But by then, he was a mature man. When World War II happened, I think he was in his 50s, and he was put in charge of the OSS for World War II, and he had an office in Bern, Switzerland. And what I want you to know is, yes, this video will take us right back to Switzerland, because the OSS was working with people from Geneva and Zurich and the Nazis. They were working there. Nazis visited Bern, Switzerland, too. It wasn't just the OSS, United States military. It was the intelligence services of Italy, who was an enemy, a fascist enemy, and the Nazis. And I have a feeling they all went out to dinner and partied it up in Switzerland. But anyway, William Donovan, Wild Bill, was Bill Colby's mentor. He's 37 years older than William Colby, and he recruited him out of Jedburgh training. He knew he went to Princeton. He knew he graduated. You know that William Colby graduated with George Shultz, the Secretary of State for Ronald Reagan. They were in the same graduating class together. They're the same age. They were both born in 1920, George Shultz and Bill Colby. And just so you know, there's some other people who are peers of Bill Colby, which would be Timothy Leary. They're the same age. Timothy Leary is the same age as William Colby, right? And there are people who are close in age to him. Cord Myers is the same age. Cord Myers lives in this Georgetown neighborhood, as does his ex-wife, Mary P. Schoen, who was murdered near the Exorcist staircase. And, you know, Bill Colby would have known Mary P. Schoen Meyer. He knows Cord Meyer. He works with Cord Meyer, her ex-husband. He works with George Shultz. He works with Ben Bradley. He works with Catherine Graham. He knows them. He goes to parties with them. He undoubtedly probably knew Joan Didion. I'm not sure he spent a whole lot of time with her, because I think she was either in Manhattan, New York, or Hollywood. And he's mainly in Washington, D.C., and Georgetown, and Vietnam, and Rome, and Buenos Aires, or wherever they fly him to. He truly is a spy master, and he has very impressive military. He volunteered for the United States Army upon graduating from Princeton University, which was before World War II. He graduated from Princeton, and then he volunteered for the OSS to be a special operative and to be a paratrooper, which was extremely unusual. And that caught the attention of Wild Bill Donovan, because he probably never heard of a Princeton graduate volunteering for, you have a 50% survival rate if you're going to be a paratrooper, to be dropped behind enemy lines. And William Colby went on to be awarded the Silver Star for gallantry for being dropped behind German lines in February 21st and 22nd, 1944. And he won a Bronze Star for meritorious achievement and heroics. He also received a Purple Heart for being wounded in combat. He also received a Prisoner of War medal because he was captured by the Germans and put into detention. The French military awarded William Colby a what we call the Croix de Guerre, which is the Cross of War, the War Cross, and that's for valor in combat. He worked alongside French guerrilla resistance fighters in northern France, and like I said, he was captured by the Germans, but he was awarded the War Cross by the French. He was also awarded the St. Olaf's Medal of Bravery and Service for Norway, because he trained guerrilla paratroopers in Norway under the tutelage of Wild Bill Donovan. And when World War II came to a conclusion, William Colby came home, where he had already graduated from Princeton, but he'd started law school at Columbia University in New York. So he returned to the law program. And you know that Wild Bill Donovan had a law degree from Columbia. And Wild Bill hired him immediately to work for the New York law firm for Wild Bill Donovan, which is a cover for his CIA operations. And it was Wild Bill who then said, yes, get your law degree, and we're going to move you into the CIA, which is going to be technically formed on the following date, which I have here, because he didn't miss a beat. He never really left the side of William Donovan, Wild Bill, until Donovan died in 1959. But he was basically working underneath Wild Bill, which puts him at an extremely high status, because you have to remember, Wild Bill Donovan is above John Dulles and he's above Allen Dulles, who are also Princeton alumni. And Wild Bill is older and has enormous numbers of medals in battle, including the Silver Star and the Purple Heart, which neither John Dulles or Allen Dulles have any of those medals. And so you're talking about a guy above Allen Dulles, above Richard Helms, above James Angleton, above him, and who founded the CIA, and who is the same level as Walter Beadle Smith, who had to go chastise George Patton on behalf of Dwight Eisenhower during the war. Beadle Smith is not above Wild Bill Donovan. And it was Wild Bill Donovan who installed Beadle Smith as the very first director of CIA. And that was done when Congress signed the National Security Act on September 18th, 1947. The OSS was morphed into the CIA. And Beadle Smith, who was a general in the United States Army, he was the first director. It could have very well been Wild Bill Donovan, but I think he didn't want the job. He was already in charge of the OSS. He was like, this is a good stepping off time. And you should know that NATO was officially formed October 24th, 1945. So Bill Donovan and William Colby were all involved in the creation of NATO, which would have been done in Geneva, Switzerland. Okay. And they were there at the inception of the CIA and the inception of the United Nations and NATO intelligence services and the United Nations. And that they were present during the establishment of the State of Israel on May 14th, 1948. So yeah, boom, 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 quick like a bunny rabbit. United Nations, NATO, Israel, and the CIA all being created within about an 18-month period of time. And this young man William Colby, at that time he was maybe 25, 26 years old. All of those organizations are created by his boss, Wild Bill Donovan.
You can't be more plugged in than this. I mean,
No, he's totally, he's above Alan Dulles. He's above.
Yeah, I didn't. This was a good introduction about him, because he's at the top of the top of the top. He's a top tier spy who's also proven his bona fides in war. So I mean, he's not a little wussy man. He is really a brave, strong hero.
Alan Dulles never did. Alan Dulles never jumped out of an airplane in pitch darkness at night, spoke fluent French, worked with the French guerrillas, was injured in battle, captured and put into a prisoner of war camp, won the Silver Star and the French Red, Star of War, Cross of War, and then liberated and sent to Columbia University for a law degree. Alan Dulles is about 17 years older than Bill Colby, but William Donovan is 37 years older. So you see, it's as if William Donovan skipped over Alan Dulles to have his young future star. Like he'd already selected Alan Dulles' replacement 20 years before it happened, because William Colby did not become CI director until April 1973, before Richard Nixon resigned. It was after the Watergate burglary, but almost nobody knew what that was at the time. But before Richard Nixon resigned in 1974, William Colby was the director of CIA for the resignation of Richard Nixon, for the fall of Saigon, where the embassy was abandoned in 1975, April 1975. That was under the tutelage of William Colby and, President Ford and Henry Kissinger, who was the Secretary of State for both Richard Nixon, and then continued under Jerry Ford, who was one of the members of the Warren Commission, which was really run by Alan Dulles, who had been fired, except he didn't really go away. He resigned, but kept busy with CIA matters. All right, back to you, Jennifer.
All right, well, I think if you can tell us when the body appeared and his condition, we can then proceed to the next question after.
Where we last left off was that we found Kevin Akers, age 22, and his wife and 2 children found the green canoe not far from William Colby's cabin, but around another parcel of land. There's a Catholic St. Francis retreat very, very close to where the canoe was beached. It's kind of a clue where the killers might have staged or stayed. They need safe houses. If you're going to have a murder, you need to have a place to take a shower, put on your black clothes. It's going to be a black ops at night. You're going to use the water. That's called wet ops. So it's a wet operation at night. So it's kind of dangerous. You need your night vision goggles so that you're not in the dark. The victims could be in the dark, but not the killers. So you want to have a prep to be ready to go and have the weapon systems to be needed. In this case, it appears that they didn't use a knife. They didn't use a gun. They didn't use a pistol. They didn't garrote. It's technically, there is no official cause of death. I mean, the coroner's report said this guy went missing for 9 days. His body was found on Sunday morning, May 6th, approximately in the same exact location where the canoe had been found by Kevin Akers on Sunday morning, April 28th, 1996, was a Sunday morning at around 9 a.m., which was about 12 hours after he left his cottage. The canoe was found full of sand and gravel and rocks, and the canoe was on its side. It wasn't ready to float away. It was turned sideways. Someone had put a lot of effort into making sure that if the tide were to come up, that the canoe would stay in place. Anyway, then what next happened was the neighbor next door to William Colby noticed his red Fiat was still parked in the driveway that Sunday morning and all day afternoon on Sunday. And she'd already spoken with him on Saturday, and he said he was returning to Georgetown on Sunday. He didn't stipulate what time he was leaving, but nosy neighbor Alice Stokes and her husband kind of kept an eye on Bill Colby's property because he did have a caretaker who they knew personally. And they knew that he parked his car in the driveway, and they were expecting that car to go away at some point on Sunday. And when it didn't, when we got out to about 6 to 7 p.m. at night, the sun is still up. Alice walked across the driveway and went up to Bill Colby's front door and knocked on the front door, and no one answered. And this is like probably, after 6:30 p.m. And there's his car, his red Fiat. And she turns the doorknob to the front door, and it's open. And she walks in to his house, and she calls out his name. There's no answer. She goes into his kitchen. She sees there's a bowl of half-eaten steamed clams and corn on the counter next to the sink. And there's another plate on the stove, and she thought that was odd. And but she didn't go in the bedroom. She didn't go into the dining room. Remember, the kitchen has a breakfast nook with a breakfast table. His wallet was on the table. His wallet. But you could say he put a placemat down to eat dinner in the room on the deck, the solarium room, which is the more forward southern room. And so she saw that there was a placemat on the dining room table, but the dishes were near the sink, but they weren't in the sink. They were next to the sink, and they weren't cleaned. So now she's getting concerned because she knows he's a very meticulous man. And now it's after 6:30 p.m. He said he was going back to Washington. He's not here. The radio was on, the radio was playing, and his computer was turned on. She turns and closes the front door, goes back to her house, which is close by, tells her husband, who is a former Navy sailor himself, and she tells him, his name is Clyde Stokes. What do we do? And then they just stewed about it for another 2 hours. And about 8 o'clock at night, she calls the sheriff at 8 p.m. And it's a Sunday night. It's the 28th of April. A woman sheriff's deputy, comes out at 8:18, arrives at the 13450 Hill Road address, and meets Clyde Stokes and Alice in the driveway. And the policeman, whose name is Sharon Walsh, she enters the home with Alice Stokes behind her. And again, they call out Bill Colby's name, no answer. And the Sharon does a more thorough investigation. She looks in the 2 bedrooms. She looks in the bathroom. She looks in the living room, the kitchenette, and there's no evidence of any violence or criminality. There's no evidence of a struggle. There's no chairs knocked over there, but she notes that the radio is playing and the computer is on and the dishes are not done. And this is now, 8:30 p.m. on Sunday night, April 28th. So some discussion ensues of, well, what do we do? And Alice points out, and Clyde notices, the green canoe is missing. The green canoe is missing. He has 2 piers, and he normally tied up the canoe or put the canoe onto the wooden pier so that the waves wouldn't knock it around. And I think that was the situation. I don't think the canoe was normally in the water. because sometimes the wind comes up and the canoe will make or noise. So the
Right.
canoe is normally in visual view of their home, the pier that's closest to them. There's a second pier in the back of the property where the killers would have come up. They're not going to come up in plain view of the neighbor. They're going to come up from behind. And there's a pier, a longer pier there. And they have a storage locker in the back of the house. And in the storage locker, it was well known by Clyde Stokes that he kept an aluminum stepladder and his life vest that he always wore when he went canoeing. His wife, Sally, and he used to go canoeing after dinner during the summer months. This particular Saturday night wouldn't have been a good night to canoe because the wind kicked up and the waves were choppy, and it wouldn't be suitable for a canoe. It's fairly unstable, and it's certainly not a good idea to canoe in darkness. So Clyde Stokes didn't believe that, and he told the sheriff, Sharon Walsh, he didn't believe that Bill Colby went canoeing. He didn't believe it. But she pointed out, but you said that he has a life vest and it's missing, and he's got the stepladder, and the stepladder is in the water, which you'd expect it to be if someone took the canoe. So there is intel. Somebody knows his pattern of using the aluminum ladder to launch the canoe and to be there when he returns so that he doesn't have to climb up on the pier. He can just take a step. And then he returns the vest, the life vest, and the aluminum stepladder to the locker. But you see, those two items are missing.
Yes.
So Sharon Walsh just said, well, it's too late. It's almost 9 o'clock at night. We can't get a rescue squad organized. So we'll have to do it tomorrow, Monday. So they do. They start out at, trying to get people organized at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. But literally, the search doesn't really begin until 11 a.m. They get the Coast Guards involved. United States Navy dispatches 4 Navy SEALs. Then they have volunteers. They started out with a dozen local civilians. Then over the next 4 days, which would be Monday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they use the Navy SEALs for 4 days. They have a helicopter with infrared sight material looking for anything that gives off a body temperature in the bushes, in the weeds, in the water. And they have a helicopter with infrared materials is 1996. So they had sophisticated equipment. And they used the Navy SEALs and they used the Coast Guard. And they eventually ballooned the search team up to approximately 100 people looking for his life jacket, his paddle, his, because they found the canoe, they meaning a civilian, Kevin Akers, age 22. He found the canoe. No law enforcement found the canoe. The canoe had been found, and the person did not know who it belonged to, so he sent it to the lost and found at the marina at Cobb Island. But they know that the paddle is missing and the life vest is missing. So they're looking for that and a body. And they spend 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whereupon they find nothing. They find nothing. Now, that's not to say they found a dozen life jackets, 12 life jackets they found in the bushes in and around that greater Neal Sound area, Neal Sound. They looked beyond his cabin. And none of the life jackets were identified by Sally, who'd returned home. There's this particular distinctive identification that Bill Colby had in his life jacket, and none of the dozen jackets that were found were Bill Colby's. They just found other people's.
Well,
so there you go.
I never heard that about the dozen life jackets showing up. That's
Correct.
interesting.
But none of them belonging to Bill. Because apparently it's not unusual to have canoes or boats go missing, and it's not unusual to lose life jackets either. So it does happen. Also, people do drown. This wouldn't be the first drowning in this area. But anyway, so they give up the search on Thursday evening, and Friday comes and goes, Saturday comes and goes, and then we get to Sunday. And at 8:10 a.m. on Sunday, in more or less the exact location where the green canoe was found 2 Sundays before. Remember, on April 28th, I guess it was one Sunday before, William Colby's pristine body is found 120 feet away from where the canoe was found, at the end of Rock Point Road, dead end cul-de-sac, on the beach, gravel. It's part sand, part rock. There's the body, and I've got a photograph of more or less where the body was found. You can go ahead and ask me a question if you'd like. I'm going to find the picture. Here it is. Okay. This is where his body was found, where this father and daughter are. Mm-hmm. His body was right about there. So not far from the water. His body was pristine, meaning it wasn't bloated. There was no evidence that it had been in the water. It's been 9 days. It's been 9 days. This is, by the way, it's not Sunday. It's Monday morning. It's Monday morning. So we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday morning at 8:10 a.m., Bill Colby's body is found there. The canoe is found over here, right behind my shoulder. The canoe would be here, and his body was here. It's about 100 feet difference, like 35 meters. Go ahead.
What would be the point of waiting 9 days before placing the body back at a site? Is there something about the number 9? Why not do it after the canoe is found? Why not just go back and dump the body, or wait a month? I mean, it just
yeah, go ahead.
Well, it just seems like an odd sort of thing. It seems to me like the killers would want to get the body out there and then get out of town. I mean, and especially
we're in no hurry to leave. They have homes here. This is they're surrounding this place. That's Gladio. Gladio always has homes 360 degrees around the murder scene. That's normal for them, because they also want contingencies in case a dog walker should magically appear. They want to be able to go hide in a home that they can escape to. So they don't know which direction they may do escape. So why not have a home in all directions, just in case?
Well, that gets into my next question, which is, since we're all in agreement that the official story doesn't hold up.
Well, yeah, because I don't see how you could go missing for 9 days with no evidence of your body decaying and be presumably in the water for 9 days, which means you're going to be really bloated and unrecognizable. But he looks like he's been in a deep sub-zero refrigerator for 9 days. Like, and that's before we've done the autopsy. When they do the medical exam, we're going to confirm that he died probably within minutes of him taking a bite of his steamed corn and clams, that he was put down in the middle of eating his food at his dining room table. But we don't know that yet, because we just found the body where this father and daughter are standing. We found this body at 8:10, and it wasn't delivered to the medical examiner office, which is in the county there, Charles County medical exam. And it was delivered there at 8:55 a.m. as they took receipt of what they thought might be William Colby. They hadn't positively identified him yet. They later did positively identify when his wife, Sally Shelton, arrived at the coroner, and she gave a positive ID. Yes, this is my husband, William Colby. This creates another problem we're going to get into, that the medical examination written report has a lot of mistakes in it, or edits, that it was changed, and that it was, maybe there was a first draft, a second draft, and then a final draft. It looks like that report's been edited, but you can't really say that, except that the facts and circumstances do not support what Sally said. She said she positively identified her husband for the coroner. However, the coroner doesn't make any reference to that in the written report that I've posted to this video. You can go read the medical exam yourself. And there's no evidence of any heart attack. There's no evidence of any drowning. There's no water in his lungs. There's no bloating. There's no decay of his body for 9 days in the water. So we have Houdini on a magic carpet placing William Colby's body where the father-daughter are standing, gingerly laying it on the sand there, and then probably doing that on Sunday night, or early, like around midnight Sunday night, or 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning on Monday, which would be May 6th. And then having, a fisherman or a beachcomber find the body after 8 a.m. in the morning on Monday morning, May 6th. You should know that the date that Bill went missing was April 27th. That's a 13. That's unity amongst Masons. In other words, 4 plus 2 plus 7 adds up to 13. The address of the home where he was abducted from is 13450 Hill Road. That adds up to 13, unity amongst Masons. The home residence where he lives in Washington, in Georgetown, is 3028 Dent Place. That's a 13. He lives in a unity amongst Masons home in Washington, D.C. He lives in a number 13 Oyster Cottage in Rock Point, Maryland, in Charles County. And he is found on May 6th, 9 days after he was last seen alive. He was last seen alive by Alice Stokes and his caretaker and his caretaker sister. There are 3 people who corroborate William Colby being alive at 7:15 p.m. Saturday evening, watering his willow tree in the front of his home at a number 13 address. Then he went in the house, and the next time we find him is 9 days later, dead right where this father-daughter are standing. Back to you, Jennifer.
Okay, well, I want to really focus on the whole phenomenon of what you call a Gladio kill or a Gladio murder or a Gladio team. And I would define a Gladio kill as a murder that has been sanctioned by the military or by NATO on a targeted individual who just has to be taken out for whatever reason. And these kills in individuals are across all spheres of our society. And you've done a lot with your channel to talk about the kills in Hollywood and the entertainment industry. And now we're looking at
London.
And here is a profoundly prominent insider, Washington. You can't get any more Washington insider than this man, including his address, living all next to all the hobnobs with Bradley and Kay Graham and all these people. So even he can be gotten to. Now,
yes.
So, but now you're also bringing in the Masonic numbers. Is that a kind of play to show that it was in fact a Gladio kill? They make sure you get the numbers, like this was done on the 13th.
It has meaning for those in the military cult, people that are part of Switzerland and banking and NATO. They all go together. You can't have a military without a bank. Someone has to pay the bills. So your banking function and your military function are inextricably linked. And they are in a very serious occult, hidden society where they have a code of obedience, a code of omerta silence, the code of silence, a code of world mission that we all agree this is the right thing to do, even if it doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do. We're going to do it anyway because we obey the higher authority. It's the pyramid, the obelisk. That's the chain of command. We follow orders or people die. It's that simple. Remember, that's what Colonel Jessup said in the movie A Few Good Men. Colonel Jessup, portrayed by Jack Nicholson. We follow orders or people die. It's that simple. Literally, it is that simple if you're in NATO Gladio. You do it or else I'll kill you and I'll get another person. I mean, I can get another person, right? And so you'll do what I tell you because it's going to get done. It's going to get done. And either you're going to do it or you're in trouble. And so what you should know is that this beach where the father-daughter are behind me here, where William Colby's dead body was found in pristine condition, is not the first time this has happened here. Now, it's the first time a dead body has been found here. But remember, the green canoe was found. The green canoe was found over my left shoulder here. It was found 9 days earlier, right here. And in 1978, September 24th, they found a 31-foot sailboat on this sandy beach, somewhere behind my shoulder here. They found a 31-foot sailboat. And the sailboat, no one was on it, but it had sophisticated CIA technology, equipment, listening devices, and night vision, and expensive military surveillance equipment was on the boat. The boat belonged to John A. Paisley, who was 55 years old. It belonged to him, but he wasn't on the boat. He was a CIA deputy director in charge of strategic research for the CIA. He had retired just a few months earlier. He had retired at age 55. He had retired early at age 55. Then his boat goes missing, and he's exact same set of circumstances as William Colby, because we found his boat, but we didn't find him. Then we waited 9 days. Then we have his dead body appearing where the canoe was. Well, in the case of John A. Paisley, they found his boat here where they found William Colby's canoe and William Colby's body years later, because remember, that's 1996. So it's 18 years later. 18 years later, we find the body of William Colby here. But 18 years earlier, we found the boat of John Paisley. He still goes missing. I don't know how many days elapsed. It was about 9 days. And then his body is discovered in Chesapeake Bay, about 50 miles away from this location. And he's weighted down with these lead belts, scuba diving belts. But scuba divers usually don't wear more than one belt. He had double belts, and he's in 20 feet of water, and he's got a hole in his head from a 9mm pistol. So I'm pretty sure that a great white shark didn't do that. So he was shot in the head, then submerged using scuba diving weights. And then he was discovered after his sailboat, 31-foot sailboat, was discovered. And so not the first rodeo that this particular zip code is. You should know where this beach is. This is very, very, very close, within 1 mile of where John Wilkes Booth rode his horse from Ford's Theater after the shooting of Abraham Lincoln. He went down I-95. Today it's called I-95 highway. That's the route of John Wilkes Booth's escape into Virginia. Because if you go across the Potomac River here, you're in Virginia, which is military intelligence, the farm. And this is where John Wilkes Booth was last seen alive. And allegedly he was killed in a barn in Virginia across this waterway. And but it turns out the guy that they found had red hair, and John Wilkes Booth is a brunette. So I think they may possibly still looking for John Wilkes Booth, like Jeffrey Epstein and hey, she's out there.
They're all on an island. They're all on an island. Well, now I'm interested in the mechanics and how these Gladio teams work. You have said they usually have a team of 3 people, but is
correct. The minimum.
Right.
That's how Bill Colby was trained as a Jedburgh, which is a Gladio killer. He was trained. It means you can map, you can speak foreign languages, you can operate at night, you can jump out of a plane. I don't think you have to have all these skills. I mean, William Colby was more qualified than I think your average killer is, but he knows how to use bombs, explosive devices. He knows how to plant them to blow up bridges. He knows how to work with guerrillas. He speaks fluent French. He is off the chart in terms of intelligence gathering. getting the secret files, taking pictures, and getting back to base. And he had a code name, Berkshire. So he didn't carry his ID with him. He was just Berkshire. And so when the enemy captured him, they don't really know who he is. And they can't say he's United States Army. They could shoot you on sight if you were an Army man, because we're in a state of war. So it's unclear. See, when you're a spy, you want to be as ambiguous as possible. And I can assure you, all Gladio killers are treated like an SR-71 spy pilot or a U-2 spy pilot. They do not carry their driver's license. They don't carry their lodge, Masonic lodge cards, which, they're members of Masonic lodges. They do not carry any identification. They don't have a library card. They don't have a picture of their sweetheart. They don't have a picture of their children. They never take identification with them when they're on an operation, ever, not ever. So when you hear that Gary Powers was shot down over Russia by Soviet missiles, and they find his driver's license, a picture of his wife, that he's a colonel in the United States Air Force, that's a BS story. I mean, they said they found it under his seat. Well, I can assure you that Gary Francis Powers did not put that in under his seat. So maybe the CIA put it under his seat, but he doesn't fly. He puts that in the locker back at the base at Edwards Air Force Base. That thing, or in Greece where they have another base, but he doesn't take that his wallet with him when he's going to fly 1,200 miles over the Soviet Union. No way. But anyway, what I'm telling you is William Colby's wallet was on his breakfast nook table. Now that's striking because remember, he's dining in the dining room,
right?
And he has a placemat. His wallet is on the smaller table behind his back. And the dishes are on the counter, but they're not clean. The glass of wine is on the counter next to the sink in the kitchen, but the bottle of wine, uncorked, remains on the dining room table. So you see things are out of position here, not normal for a one-man bachelor guy. He's having a bachelor weekend. His wife's in Houston, Texas. Sally is visiting her mother in Houston. He had already spoken to her at 7 p.m. There is no way that he's going to have a substantially he's only drunk about less than one glass of wine. There's 4 glasses of wine in a bottle. It barely has one glass poured out of that bottle. There's no cork in it. He leaves the bottle on the dining room table, but someone moved his glass to the sink and moved his bowl of clams to the sink.
Well, did they dust for fingerprints on all this stuff?
No. But
outrageous.
you're not going to find any if this is a Gladio. You never find a fingerprint. They wear surgical gloves.
That's
so
right.
Who cares? Was it a screw up? Yeah, but they weren't going to find anything. So it's not really a material mistake. I mean, if it's a professional killing, you're not going to find any fingerprints. So there aren't going to be. And by the way, the viewers watch this know, latent fingerprints, if they're left outside, they only last 24 hours that's about it. Especially if it's windy or raining, you got 1 day to get those latent prints. Inside the house, those prints can last 72 hours, for 3, 4, or 5 days. I don't know if they dusted for prints inside the house. It wouldn't matter. The killers are going to be from another country. There's not going to be any criminal record of any of these people. None of them are going to be United States citizens. They're not going to be in the FBI's database. None of these people will be in the FBI's database. The people, if he was murdered, there'll be no record of them in the United States of America. Go ahead.
Could you recreate for us how you think this all happened? The men came in from the side or the back, how they
sure.
How they put him in a bag, etc. Like, walk us through the paces, please.
All right. Yeah, that'll be fun. All right. So what I believe happened, the most plausible, most believable way is, number one, William Colby, after working 6.5 hours on his sailboat on a Saturday afternoon, morning into afternoon. Had no intention of going canoeing. He was planning to drive back to Georgetown. He just got off his phone at 7 p.m. to tell his wife that he was going to take a shower. He was going to steam some clams, 12 clams that he picked up at the grocery store on Cobb Island, and corn. He was going to steam it, sit at the solarium dinner table, eat his dinner, take a shower, and go to bed early. That's what he told Sally. That's what Sally said. He said, we don't have a recording. I'm sure there is a recording of that conversation by military intelligence, but I don't have a copy of it. But Sally said that he was going to steam the dinner, eat it, take a shower, and go to bed. And then in the morning on Sunday, he was going to drive back to Georgetown. That's what he told his wife. But that's not what happened, right? That what he told her did not happen. Again, this is the house. This is the kind of the, we're at the south end looking north at the house. We're looking northeast. And let's just study this for a moment. It's a modest home. You can see where they built this addition out on the deck. Let me kind of remove myself a little bit here. I only get my out. So you see, there's the deck. He cut the deck into half, and he enclosed the northern part of the deck and made it into a dining room with windows all around it.
Yeah.
Now the window coverings are up here in the corner, but he's got windows around the back too. Now this face is south. This is a southern exposure house. When he's eating dinner, he's actually looking at the marina, the portside marina. He's looking at Cobb Island. And the sun is setting to his right. The sun is going down to his right. Now, if you're the killer, you probably don't want to come at him from this direction. They certainly can. There's water where I am sitting. There's water to his right. There's water to the front of him. And there's also water to the left of him. Okay, but you remember, this is the front. This is the rear of the house. It's the side of the house, but the bedroom is in the complete opposite end of this house. And there's another pier in the opposite end of the house. And if I was the killers, and I would say it'd be a minimum of 3 teams of 3, which would be 9, plus there will be a reconnaissance team of 3, so that'll be 12. I really don't think you're going to do this in terms of fewer than 9 people, and probably going to be 12 when you add in he's getting surveillance from a helicopter or from the Catholic retreat across the way. And they are noting movements in the house. They probably have listening devices installed in the house also. So this is where I believe the Zodiac teams, three Zodiac teams, would beach right here. Yeah. This is in the back of the home. And his solarium view, he wouldn't notice, because you see the home, he would look to his left, but he wouldn't notice the Zodiac boats. They're going to come from further up this river here, this Indian river, which we call the Waikimiko. This is the Waikimiko River. And pardon me, this is just a little estuary piece, but they're coming from further north. And they're going to cross over from, I think, the Catholic retreat, and they're going to come up behind him, and they're going to come ashore, over here. And they're going to come up where he won't see them. Then they're going to enter the house. I believe there's a door right behind my head here, and they're going to go in the door to the laundry room, which will be open. Or if it's not open, they know how to open doors. And they're going to walk down the short hallway into his breakfast nook kitchen. It's one room. And they're going to tase the back of his neck. He will have his back to them. They'll be coming from behind him. They'll be wearing slippers, or socks. They're not going to have any footprints. They're not going to track in a bunch of sand from the beach. They're going to have taken their shoes off and entered the home stealth, quiet, come up behind him, tase him, He's going to fall out of his seat onto the chair, onto the floor, and then they're going to murder him right there in the dining room. They're going to I posted a video that you've seen where from Michael Clayton video where they killed a senior partner at a New York law firm who had gone rogue, who had gone against the client. And so it was decided based on his age just to kill him. And I think that's what happened here is that Bill Colby at age 76 had outlived his utility value to the higher authority. And they thought like Remo Gadji, you know, he knows too much. He knows everything. He knows all the secret files. Why take a chance? That's my feelings on the subject. Just take him out. So if you're going to do it, this guy, even though he's 76, when he was 21 to 26 years old, he was trained to kill like James Bond. He had a license to kill. He could kill anyone that gets in his way. He could kill with garrote, stiletto dagger, bayonet, hand grenade, explosive bomb, rifle, 9mm, 12. You know, he could kill with a 22 caliber pistol. Anything. And he can jump out of an airplane at night. So you don't want to mess around with this guy. I know he's not tip-top condition. He's 76. But like, why take a chance? You know he has a gun somewhere. You know he's got a loaded gun in that house. For sure he does. So you don't want to make sure it's in his pocket. So you just tase him. Now he's unconscious. Pull his shoe. He's wearing loafers. You pull his sock off. Then you give him an injection of a toxin poison, which will not turn up in the autopsy. And by the way, the medical examiner is not going to look for it anyway and wouldn't know what to look for. 95% of all pharmaceutical products are undetectable in an autopsy, especially if you've been missing for 9 days. If you've been dead for 9 days, you're going to find nothing. And the autopsy report said that he had been drinking before his body was found. They couldn't figure out. He had one glass of wine. You wouldn't be able to tell that from their autopsy 9 days after he died. You're not going to be able to tell by looking at his liver if he drank a glass of wine 9 days ago. But anyway, that was another mistake that's in the medical examination report, which I believe is false. But yeah, he'd had one glass of wine. You can base that on the fact that that's how much wine is missing from the bottle. And he didn't drink the whole thing. So it's a half a glass of wine. If you really, really want to get into it, it's half a glass of wine because there was still wine in the wine glass. He hadn't drunk it all. So what I believe is the killers came in from here, went in the laundry room, snuck up behind him, tased him, pulled off one of his shoes, and injected him with an insulin needle between his big toe and the middle toe, and had another soldier checking his carotid artery for the pulse. And then when it ended, they put the sock back on, and no one's going to notice the little tiny insulin. The insulin is a very skinny needle. It won't leave a prick mark, really. It's not like a bee sting. It's less than a bee sting. And then you put the sock and the shoe back on. And then you have your second guy has the plastic body bag. You lay the body bag, you carry the victim onto the bag, you zip it. Then you have two men carry him back out here to this beach, put him on one of the Zodiac boats, instruct the other guys to go around to the front of the property where there's the green canoe and tie a tow rope to the green canoe, go get the aluminum stepladder and the life jacket. We don't know if he wears it or not, but just take it. Just take it because we don't want to leave it. Because if we leave the life jacket, it'll look like this was staged, which, by the way, it does look like this. But anyway, but just go ahead and take the life vest. So they take the life vest, they put the aluminum stepladder in the pier that's at the end of the property here in the southern end that's facing out at Cobb Island. They place the canoe in the water. They attach the tow rope to their Zodiac raft, which has a silencer so you don't hear the engine. So you're not going to disturb Alice Stokes and Clyde, who are watching television right now. They're watching television. So you're not making any noise. And it's windy and the waves are crashing around. So then the one crew of 3 men, they take the life vest and the canoe, and they go down to where I showed you that it was hidden, which was, let me go back and show you that just for a second. My computer is acting up while I'm trying to tell you what happened. So one team of 3 men went here to the beach to place the green canoe. They had to have trowels or shovels in their Zodiac because 3 men could shovel it full of sand and rocks, in 10 minutes or less. And then that's mission accomplished. They forgot to remove the tow rope, however, so they screwed up. You should have removed the tow rope because, you see, by having a tow rope on the canoe, aren't you telegraphing that maybe
Obviously.
the canoe was towed
Yes.
here?
Yeah,
I mean,
duh.
Bill Colby went canoeing by himself alone. Does he require a tow rope?
No.
Right? He would use a paddle, which, by the way, where's the paddle? I don't know where the paddle is missing. Okay, so where's the life vest? They must have got into an argument on the raft. Hey, do we leave the jacket here? Do we throw it in the weeds? Do we just throw it in the water? Do we throw the paddle in the water? What do we do? What do we do? I don't know. Let's just take it back to base. So instead, let's just keep our shovels and our trowels and our life vest but just leave the tow rope. I think they forgot I think they were arguing about whether to leave the vest or not. And they forgot about the tow rope, which is a tell. And it's a mistake. It's for sure a mistake. There is no way that Bill Colby would have a tow rope on his canoe. But anyway, that was left. And then that team would return to base. And I believe base is the St. Francis Retreat, which is literally right across this little estuary here. This is the Waikamico River. This is the Waikamico River. And right across it is a Catholic retreat behind some bushes. And I'm sure they just went right over there. They took the dead body of William Colby along the pathway into the basement of the Catholic retreat, which is scheduled to handle 40 to 50 Catholics for a weekend or a week retreat. So you're going to have multiple refrigerators. And this was an off weekend. There's probably, just a priest there and a caretaker, but you have access, and very possibly some of the killers are staying there at the Catholic retreat because they have bedrooms. And some of the killers, I think, are staying there. Some are probably staying at some of the safe houses in and around the Rock Point Peninsula. There are at least a dozen homes, and there are probably 6 of them available for the military to use. So I think some of the killers are there, and some of them are across this river at the Catholic retreat, which has the sub-zero refrigerator that will fit a body. And you put them in there for 9 days. Then you wait until the Coast Guard and the Navy SEALs abandon the search, which they finish up on Thursday, and they leave. And then you count Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No sheriff's deputy coming back. No Coast Guard. No helicopter. Okay, go over there at like 1 o'clock in the morning, leave one Zodiac boat, and go over with the rubber body bag, and then deposit William Colby right where this father-daughter are. Take the body bag, get in the raft, go back. Meanwhile, the rafts deflate and are put on a truck and driven over the bridge to Virginia, where John Wilkes Booth was headed. And then they're destroyed or put into storage on the military intelligence. They have 100,000 acres of military training area, including Quantico FBI, the Marines, the Army, NATO forces, and people from other armies throughout the world. Israelis come here, Buenos Aires, Argentinians, Brazilians, Chile. They all come to right across this river. They come to train for black ops. This is a black ops area. So it's like no problem to dispose of the medical waste, which would be the syringe and the poison and vial, which is not much, and to dispose of the 3 Zodiac boats. Back to you, Jennifer.
Well, just one question about this whole operation. Now, Colby is sitting at his table in the solarium, enjoying his dinner, having a little bit of
Right.
wine, his corn, his clams. And the men come in from the side. They've got slippers on.
Well,
He's
not
got,
his. They come up behind him, but
right, but they,
they come in from the
once,
side of the house from where he's looking
right,
south. So they're to his left side, but they're behind him, substantially behind him, 30 feet behind him.
all right. And so by
So
the time
he won't notice them. It's pitch dark now. They don't enter the property till 8:30 p.m. So it's pitch dark, and he won't notice any moving shadows or anything. And they have night goggles.
by the time he realizes someone's in the house, he can't do anything about it.
No, I mean, it's quick like a bunny rabbit.
Right, right, right.
He's looking
Okay.
across at the marina, and the next thing you know,
Yes.
he gets zapped.
Well,
Or maybe he turned and faced them, and then they zapped him.
yeah. Wasn't there something abrasions on the left wrist or something that
Yeah,
could
yeah,
indicate that
wrist.
maybe he
So,
had a
but maybe someone
momentary
grabbed,
fight?
or maybe he waved his arm and they grabbed his arm, and then
Yeah.
the taser all happened simultaneously.
Well, I think
It
that clip,
wasn't one man. It would have been three men
right,
in the room
right,
with him. They're not
right.
going to take a chance with William Colby one-on-one. It'll be 3-on-1. That's considered a
Right.
fair Gladio fight, 3-on-1.
The clip that you posted on your Substack from the Michael Clayton film that shows how quickly and easily you can do it. Just tase, pull back, inject the foot, dead. It's like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it takes like 3.5 minutes.
And it's so easy, I mean, it's just the
Well,
guy
the
doesn't
taste
have a
is
chance.
that you don't have to get into a struggle. You don't have to, whether it's a woman, whether it's Marilyn Monroe, whether it's Thelma Todd, whether it's Thelma Todd got into a physical wrestling match from whoever killed her, and then they called it a asphyxiation suicide. They also said there was Bill Colby died of heart attack, asphyxiation, and drowning. And the question is, well, can you pick one? I mean, how can it be all three? I mean, if he had a heart attack and he's dead before he hit the water, which, by the way, that's what the medical examiner told Sally Shelton, that her husband was dead before he hit the water. Well, if he's dead before he hit the water, then he didn't drown, and he didn't die of being in the cold water, because they said that he died of the cold, or he asphyxiated, or he drowned, but there's no water in his lungs. So why would you tell the wife that he was dead before he hit the water? And so they're just making this stuff up, right? They're just like anything to just get you to stop asking me questions, kind of a thing.
Well, why would Hollywood show this? Show how it's done? Because aren't they giving away their secrets?
They like to do that.
They're having fun.
Well, first of all, why would they roll out COVID and tell you it's safe and effective? That's pretty stupid. What kind of a stupid person would believe that? When you've been lied to in every aspect of your life, your whole life, but they're going to tell you the truth about a global pandemic, a pandemic that begins in a food market in Wuhan, China, simultaneously with appearing in Milan, Italy, Rome, Italy, the Vatican City, Paris, France, London, Manhattan, New York, St. Louis, Missouri, Phoenix, Arizona, San Francisco, and Honolulu, Hawaii, all simultaneously before anyone's had a chance to get on a plane and to spread the flu virus. But that was the story. And I think it takes a special kind of stupid to believe a story like coronavirus. But anyway, if you're that stupid, then I can tell you how I killed Bill Colby. And what are you going to do? Call the police? You can call who? What are you going to tell them? I know how they did it. I know how they got Jack Kennedy. They shot him from the railroad trestle. Okay, well, you think Oliver Stone is going to do a film on your brilliant deductive reasoning? We know that Jack Kennedy was killed from the railroad trestle, but Oliver Stone doesn't, and all the book writers don't. Mark Levin Lane doesn't know, but I know. And I've been there. Okay. I actually checked it out myself personally. Now, in this case, I Google mapped it. I didn't go there. I haven't visited Rock Point, Maryland. I have not. If I ever get back there, I will. I'm very confident in what happened because it's identical to the Sharon Tate murder. It's identical to the Lena LaBianca murder. It's identical to the Dr. Victor Oda family massacre murder where they killed 5 people plus a kitty cat. And they're exactly the same. And they all have safe houses. And in the case of Dr. Victor Oda, 1 mile up his road, Rodeo Gulch Road, 999 North Rodeo Gulch Road. If you go up that road 1 mile, you know where you end up? A St. Francis Retreat, where the killers could take showers and clean up. Well, we got the same thing with the William Colby case. They could shower right over there. It could be there in 5 minutes or less. So it's remarkable how it's the same template. They don't even really improvise. The only thing that's unique about the William Colby is you could use the Zodiac rafts. Okay. And the others, you walk onto the property from the home next door. You get the next door neighbor because you know the next door neighbor homes at the Sharon Tate murder scenes, they're all military intelligence housing. So you can use all the homes. And the home right below the murder scene is a 13 home, 10048 Cielo Drive. On Cielo Drive is a number 13 house. It is the rehearsal house. It's the same square footage, the same pool house. It's identical. And then you could rehearse that for 3-4 days. Then when it's time to kill the people, walk up the ice plant and do it for real on the identical doppelganger twin property where you've been practicing for 4 days already and you're bored out of your mind. And you just walk up the ice plant and do it for real, right? I mean, how easy, and how come, Vincent Bugliosi and Kurt Gentry and all Neil Sanders and Tom O'Neill and all these famous book authors have never pointed out that there's a doppelganger rehearsal house, number 13, directly below the Sharon Tate crime scene. Oliver Stone knows, he's been there. Oliver Stone, you know where Timothy Leary lives. Timothy Leary is the exact same age as William Colby. William Colby went to Princeton. Timothy Leary went to West Point and is military intelligence Army, just like William Colby is. But Tune In, Turn On, Drop Out was given the home directly down the ice plant from Abigail Folger's body where she bled out in 10106 Sunbrook Drive. And Oliver Stone went over to bring a get well card to Timothy Leary at that address 30 days after William Colby got killed. 1 month after this guy got killed, Oliver Stone drove to the Sharon Tate murder and gave a card to Timothy Leary, who's living in the house where the killer of Abigail Folger took a shower and cleaned up. That's pretty Masonic.
And I think Oliver Stone was aware of what had happened to William Colby.
That's why he made damn sure he went over there, even though he seems to be a Jewish Buddhist, and it's St. Patrick's Day on Sunday. He went over there on St. Patrick's Day on a Sunday, 1 month after William Colby was killed on the 27th. Oliver Stone went over there 30 days after this date on May 30th. So you can do the math on that. It was he went over there 24 days after his body was discovered pristine on that beach. Oliver Stone on St. Patrick's Day, Sunday, went to visit Timothy Leary, who was dying of prostate cancer, in the house directly below Abigail Folger's murder. I think that they all know exactly what went on with the Abigail Folger Sharon Tate killing. And I think Oliver Stone knows what went on with the John Kennedy murder, but he's not going to show it in his films. And that he knows how William Colby got whacked as well. That's what I think.
Right. And so what you're pointing out is that not only do you get rid of the target, but you send a big message to the larger community.
Correct.
And so
not for the public. It's not for the public. Right. It's only for people like Oliver Silverstein. It's for him, and it's for Lawrence Schiller, and it's for Dominique Dunn, and it's for Larry King of Larry King Live. It's for Tucker Carlson. It's for Stu Peters. It's for Walter Cronkite. It's for Dan Rather. That's who the message is for. It's for those clowns who may be thinking that they're smarter than they really are, flying on borrowed wings. Back to you, Jennifer.
Well, after this whole case was somewhat settled, I mean, there were a lot of rumors that started to go around. A lot of people didn't believe the official story. And one of the rumors or thoughts was that he was being punished for having testified before congressional committees about CIA operations in what they called it the family jewels, in which he testified about CIA operations, assassinations, poison dart guns, MK Ultra programs, and that maybe this was revenge against that. So what?
Yeah, ridiculous. Poppycock balderdash.
Okay.
He testified 56 times to Congress, mostly with Frank Church on the Senate subcommittee, but he also testified on what was called the Pike Committee, which was the House of Representatives. Not a single word that came out of his pie hole was a secret. Everything was already known. The dart gun, the poison dart gun, that was a complete, prop staged event. Frank Church is a fraud too. Just like Ron Johnson and the COVID vaccine, the vaccine adverse effects, that's a complete hoax. Richard Gage and the 9/11 truther architects and engineers, 100% COINTELPRO hoax. Richard Gage is a hoax. Frank Church is a hoax. The Ron Johnson and COVID adverse vaccine, he's a fraud. Any person in the United States Senate, every person in the House of Representatives is a criminal and a fraud. And every governor of every state follows their orders or else. So the resistance movement is always led by the enemy, which would be the CIA and the NATO intelligence services. So I can assure you that a person who is indoctrinated and groomed and fast-tracked within NATO and NATO Kill and Gladio, and was serving in Rome, Italy, when Sharon Tate appeared on Stars and Stripes at age 16. And there's William Colby stationed in Rome, and Sharon Tate is in Verona, not 100 miles north of him. And he's got to know her father. He knows Paul Tate, and he knows Lou Brown. He knows Lou Brown too, the father of Nicole Brown. He knows him. They're both Army intelligence officers. Yes, Nicole Brown's father and Sharon Tate's father. They're Army intelligence. So they, of course, would know William Colby. He's at a higher level than they are. They would know him. He was a major in the Army when he was transferred over to the CIA. He was a rank of a major, which is above captain but below lieutenant colonel. He was not a full-blown colonel, but he was fixing to become a colonel. But instead, he became a deputy director in charge of Gladio in Rome, and then he was sent to he was sent to Saigon, Vietnam in 1960 and 60. Sharon Tate was appearing on April 1960's Stars and Stripes cover girl with a cowgirl hat and a leotard, straddling a NATO rocket with U.S. Army on it. And she's 16 years old in that picture. She was 17 years old when the picture was published, because her birthday was in January, and it was published in April 1960. And by that time, that's around the time that William Colby was sent to Saigon as a diplomat, as an ambassador to Vietnam for South Vietnam, and given residency in the palace on the grounds of the USS Embassy. And it was there through 1963, 63-64, where he's in charge of cords. And before cords, it was search and destroy. He was in charge of search and destroy. Then it was replaced by cords, but he was pulled back to Washington, D.C. before John Kennedy was killed. He was like he was there, and let me show you a photograph to prove what I'm telling you, so you know I just haven't been drinking all day. Here is a photograph. Here's a photograph of William Colby. This is November. I don't know what the date of this photo is. This is in the summertime of 1963. He is talking to the unelected puppet leader of South Vietnamese.
Diem.
Diem. There's Diem brothers. He has his older brother is just like, it's like Fidel Castro. The older brother, Raul, was in charge of the military, and his older brother's in charge of the South Vietnamese military, which is a CIA army. But this is the president of South Vietnam, and he is talking there to William Colby. Now, on November 2nd, both the Diem brothers, he and his brother in charge of the army, were both, they both were in fear of their lives. They put their wives and children on airplanes to be flown out of Saigon. They retreated. There are two churches directly across the street from where this picture is taken at the embassy. This is in the embassy in Saigon. And across the street, you have a Catholic church and you have a Buddhist temple. And there's a tunnel system underneath this floor that goes to both churches. Take a wild guess which church the Diem brothers, after they got their wives sent to the airport, where did they go? Because they wanted to leave the embassy. They knew they'd be kidnapped if they didn't leave.
They go to a Catholic church?
Yeah, well, they're both Catholic. They are both Roman Catholics. That's true. But that's not where they went. They went to the Buddhist temple. They know they for sure would be killed at the Catholic church.
Oh, okay.
But they can't trust the Catholic church. So they went to the Buddhist. And so they sent an emissary into the Buddhist temple, they meaning the CIA, and they said, come on, Ali Oxenfree, come on out. Everything's fine. You don't want anything to happen to your wives. You know, we're holding them hostage at the airport, right? What? I thought they flew out. No, we stopped the plane. So they basically got them to come out because they said, we're going to kill your family. So they came out. They were put in the back of a van, and then they were shot in their foreheads with M16 rifles on November 2nd, 1963, which is exactly 20 days before they did the exact same thing to John Kennedy at Dealey Plaza inside of the obelisk, the George Dealey Plaza pyramid triangle with the 25-foot tall obelisk, chain of command, which John Kennedy was breaking the chain of command, and in a 999666 building address location. All right. So anyway, that's what I want you to know is that Bill Colby went from the OSS and parachuting behind enemy lines with the Germans and the French to becoming a CIA operative stationed in Rome, Italy. And then he went to Saigon, where he's working with the puppet government of South Vietnamese with no democratic elections whatsoever. There was a plan to have an election. 1959 was canceled because they did a straw poll and they realized that a Buddhist was going to be elected, and he's Catholic. And, 70% of the country is Buddhist. And they know he's a puppet for the CIA, so he was going to lose. So what they did is they just canceled the election. That way you don't lose. You get another 4 years comped. So that's how democracy works. They rig it.
Well, I also just want to touch on how violent these programs were that Colby was in charge of. The Phoenix operation, which it's designed to get rid of the Viet Cong through pacification and control of the population. And also CORD stands for the Civil Operations and Revolutionary Development Support. That's what it stands for. So these are, he was overseeing really violent programs because Juxtaposition,
yes. Well, yeah, because then first it was search and destroy, then it was Agroville, then it was strategic hamlet program. I forgot about that. Then it was CORDS, which integrates all the programs I'm telling you integrate everything that came before. It's not like there's a completely new program.
Okay.
Everything they've always done. Search and destroy in America is called warrantless search. They
Okay.
do that every day. They think that you have a DUI, they ask if you have a gun in the car, do you have a bottle in the car, do you mind if I look in the car? If you say yes, then they can warrantless search your car. But if they have probable cause and they think that you are threatening them, they can search your car without talking to a judge. That's a warrantless search. That's standard throughout the whole world. It's called maritime law. It's called military law. It's called martial law. Martial law means I can do whatever I want. If I have a loaded gun, like this gentleman who's shooting this other young man, this is a 45-year-old policeman in Saigon, and he is summarily executing a 22-year-old man who he suspects of being a Viet Cong. So this is the chief of police who is shooting. Now, is there any due process here? Does he have an attorney?
Yeah.
Does he have Miranda rights? Does he have a constitution? No, he just shoots him in the head. That was televised on CBS Evening News.
That's a very iconic photograph from the war.
Yes.
It's very famous, very iconic.
And that's the chief of police. And look at the guy to the left of the chief of police. He's actually laughing. He thinks it's funny. He's a South Vietnamese army man. I know South Vietnamese army men who I worked with in California, and none of them smile. Like this guy's smiling. That, for all I know, could be Frank Fu. That could be Frank Fu. Frank Fu never smiled. I never saw him smile in 20 years. I never saw him smile. And but this guy's smiling, and this guy doesn't have any hesitation about it. He knows that's the guy. He's handcuffed. He's not going anywhere, and he kills him. So this is kind of an example of the way the brutality is, that William Colby was the director of all these programs: Strategic Hamlet, Chords, and then what followed was something that was added to Chords: Phoenix, Facing the Phoenix, the Rising Phoenix. Phoenix is a kidnapping, torture, interrogation, and murder program that was designed for the 48 provinces. They had 48 interrogation torture centers that were always in the basement of the police department. It would be the provisional prefect and who the like the governor or the supervisor of that county. There were 48. And in the basement of that prefect, they'd have a torture chamber, where they put bamboo up your fingernails, and they do electroshock treatment. They hang you from rafters in different weird positions, and then they beat you, and then they ask you questions, and or they have multiple people. They kill one, then ask the other two to cooperate, or else we'll do exactly what we did to him to you. I'll take you up in a helicopter and throw you out, throw one of your friends out, then turn to you. Are you going to talk now? Yeah. That's William Colby was in charge of that. So, would it be a surprise that his death was pretty painless. I believe he was unconscious, and he was poisoned. He didn't drown. He wasn't garroted. They didn't do like Sam Giancana, who was shot once in the back of the head, then 6 times to his face, so none of his family could see him in an open casket funeral. They destroyed his face. Or Tony Spilatro and his brother, they were unrecognizable. Or Johnny, handsome Johnny Roselli had his legs cut off and stuck in a 55-gallon oil drum in Biscayne Bay for days. So his body is bloated and unrecognizable. He doesn't look like handsome Johnny Roselli anymore. So they didn't do that to William Colby. He wasn't literally left like a beached whale. He was very gingerly planted. They unzipped his body bag and they placed him on the sand. And then they grabbed the bag, got on the Zodiac raft, and went back to base, which I think takes about 3 minutes to get back to base. And they're showing their acumen, their skill, their planning, and how they don't get caught. And they're laughing in your face. You can send the Coast Guard, the county sheriff, you can send the Navy SEALs, and we'll kill the CI director and you won't catch us. See how smart we are? And we'll kill Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger, and we'll blame it on an unemployed hippie, and you'll believe me. That's how smart we are, and more to the point, how stupid you are.
It's frightening because
planted an American Swiss flag with 13 stripes. 13 stripes, unity amongst Masons, and we killed Bill Colby at a number 13 address on a number 13 date. And you're so dumb you don't even know that we did that. Go ahead. And Sharon Tate was killed at a number 33 house. 10050 Sella Drive is a 6. 6 is a 33. It's just like John Kennedy. He's killed at a 33. 501 Main Street, 501 Elm Street, 411 Elm Street, 666, 33. If you add them up, 666 is Mark of the Beast. If you turn your back to it, as Jack Kennedy did when he drove down the hill on Elm Street, and they parked the limo like having a picnic, he has now turned his back. It's an inversion to 999, meta dead. And so is Jack Kennedy. And they shoot his throat for code of silence, omerta. Then they shoot his right eyeball out, leaving the left eye of Horus, which is the Egyptian mysticism that, if you don't know, is on the back side of your dollar bill. You have the left eye of Horus, and it's atop a pyramid behind your $1 bill, and it's always atop the obelisk, which I'm telling you, Jack Kennedy had an obelisk behind him, and that is where that left eye goes. It goes atop the George Dealey Plaza obelisk. Right? And he was shot from the top of the pyramid of Dealey Plaza, which is a triangle, where for Elm Street, Main Street, and Commerce Street, which means Merchants Exchange, they all come together at Commerce Street under the railroad trestle. And that's where the killers who shot him were, with silencers. No one heard their shots. Their shots were muzzled. The shots that are heard are not kill shots. Those are just to create chaos and confusion. And we have much of that in play with the William Colby case, because the only way you can explain this is that if you believe that William Colby went canoeing, then he must be like Houdini on a magic carpet, because he left the canoe, he took his life vest and his paddle, and then he went and hid for 9 days. Then he killed himself and then laid down on the beach and let someone else take the paddle and vest. And it's like, he couldn't have done this by himself alone. He needed help. You can't disappear for 9 days and then reappear like Houdini, where the Navy SEALs spent 4 days looking. Back to you, Jennifer.
Well, I'm just about out of questions. I'm glad we talked about Vietnam, because one theory was maybe he was killed by Vietnamese wanting revenge, but that's just more disinformation, I assume.
Well, yeah, by other CIA employees who had lovers with children, illegitimate children in Saigon. There were hundreds or thousands of those people who they didn't get everyone out. And Bill Colby was in charge of that, of getting this. And believe me, I did business with many of the Vietnamese people who William Colby got out of Vietnam. And they had got important jobs at corporations in California. They did. And they lived in beautiful homes. So they must have been kind of important people. But they didn't get 100% of every illegitimate person out of Vietnam. They got people on the A list out. And the B and C was just depends if it works out, or we run out of time, or there's not enough helicopters.
Mm-hmm. When I was at UPI in San Francisco, one of the stories I covered was the arrival of Vietnamese orphans, but it was a big plane load. And I think it was one of the first shipments, and they all came to a big hangar. I don't remember if it was in San Francisco.
Huge problems domestically, because see, if William Colby did get 100% of the people out, then he's going to get in trouble with the wives, because the wife is going to find out the guy has a different wife with children in Vietnam. Why did you bring them back? So like, he could get murdered by the wife of a CIA employee who has two families. One in Maryland and another one in Saigon. And then it's going to be some furious wife who's going to do it. So look, there's no shortage of enemies for William Colby, but I'm just saying, just like if his name was Al Capone, or his name was Frank Nitti, or his name was Tony or Curto, or Sam Giancana, you got to get approval to kill someone of the status of those people. In other words, from the top, you have to get a thumbs up. You can do it. Because if you kill Bill Colby and you didn't get permission, do you think that you're not going to get in trouble? You're going to get worse. You'll be killed for sure. Or your children will be killed first, and then you'll be killed second. So there is no way anyone is going anywhere near the golden boy, William Colby, with the Silver Star, who is the disciple of Wild Bill Donovan, the head of the OSS and the founder of the CIA. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is going after him. And Henry Kissinger and Gerald Ford do not have the authority to fire any CIA director. Richard Nixon could not fire Richard Helms. Donald Trump cannot fire whoever the whack job CIA director is. They have no authority to fire the Fed chairman. They can't fire the CIA director. They report to Switzerland. They report to NATO and Swiss Bank Authority. They do not report to a fake puppet president, which is what Gerald Ford was, which is what Richard Nixon was, which was what Ronald Reagan was, which is what Donald Trump is. They're puppets. Sorry for the commentary, but that's how they roll in Gladio. They generally don't care too much about puppets. They just do those occasionally for show and tell. But they do like to tell you through Hollywood films how smart they are. Mm-hmm. I'll just leave it at that. There are many, many dozens of examples of Hollywood films, from 3 Days of the Condor to Marathon Man to Manchurian Candidate, multiple redos, where Michael Clayton, Godfather Part 1, Godfather Part 2, they show you assassination situations. And in some cases, the murderers themselves get murdered shortly after succeeding. But God help you if you fail. If you are hired to kill somebody and you don't, then that's going to be really serious. But normally they only send professionally well-trained people, and they rehearse how you're going to do it. There's no wing in it. There's no wing in it. You're not like an amateur podcaster wanting to do a video without doing any research and no notes. It's not like that in NATO. They rehearse every single thing they're going to do, and they have contingency plan A, B, C, and they have multiple safe houses because they know not everything 100% goes according to plan. In this murder, they forgot the tow rope on the canoe. Mm-hmm. That's a tell to tell us, the Nancy Drews, the Hardy Boys, the Frank Hardy, to tell you that William Colby did not go canoeing Saturday night in Whitecaps. He wouldn't have needed a tow rope. He would have needed a psychiatrist. And so somebody else must have towed the canoe and filled it up with the sand. All right. Well, thank you very much. If you don't have any further questions, we'll just put this one in the can, and we'll encourage everybody to like and share. This video is a high security video.
I just would like to say that maybe it's just worth thinking about how you have this man who goes from being a World War II hero with everything going for him to ending up as he does. And it's just something to think about. That's all.
Okay, very good. Let me show you one last photograph of Bill Colby, William Colby in his element as kind of a kingpin at the CIA. He is surrounded here by, salad. Everybody's got all this salad dressing on their suits, right? Everybody's got all this, these medals. So everybody at this table is highly decorated officer of the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army. And at the head of this table is William Colby. He's only a major. in the military, but he's CIA director now. So he's above everybody in this room. So he is comfortable in his world. He only reported to William Donovan, Wild Bill, who has more experience in his pinky finger than all these men combined, which would include Edward Lansdale. Edward Lansdale was in Vietnam from 1954 until 1963, and probably was on the same airplane as William Colby was when they were coming home around the time that the Diem brothers were killed. That's when Edward Lansdale returned and was present for Jack Kennedy's murder. He came back from the Diem brother murder just in time to go to the JFK murder in Dallas.
He doesn't want to miss out.
So that's this Kabul. This is a Kabul. This is a secret. They all have a code of obedience and a code of silence, omerta, just like the mafia, exactly like the mafia. They are, in fact, mafiosos. And they have a world mission, which is that they work for United Nations, One World Governance, which I've coined GGG, Geneva Global Governance. All these men work for Geneva, Switzerland. 100% of them, whether they're in a military uniform or a corporate suit with a tie like I'm wearing. They work for Switzerland. And look, they have her Swiss flag in the back to the left. That is a 13-stripe Unity Monks Mason American flag as we head to July 4th, the 250th year anniversary of a fake Hunger Game called America. But I can assure you, Switzerland is laughing at us. They're starting the Tour de France on America's birthday, and they're going to laugh all the way to the bank. Anyway, thank you, Jennifer, for giving us that professional panache that you have from years of professional journalism experience and story writing.
Thank you. Thank you, Juxtaposition. Thank you.